Culture Shifters, thank you for joining us today at Culture Shift Podcast. I'm Martha Williams, your host today. Today we will be talking to creative economist Neil Ramsay about the role of creativity in shifting education, businesses, organizations, and the economy. Here at Culture Shift Agency, we are looking to understand new ways of thinking so we can all play an active role in creating positive culture shift. By positive, we mean moving towards a more balanced, fair, loving, evolving existence. With that, we welcome Neil Ramsay. So, welcome to the Culture Shift podcast. We are very happy to have Neil Ramsay. Neil Ramsay is a creative economist. So I wanted to bring him on to talk about what it's like to work with institutions and businesses that are traditional and what it's like to break these organizations open and help them to find new ways of thinking so that they can shift their cultures and be better at what they do. So thank you so much for making time for this.
Thank you, Martha, for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear about your journey and how you got to be what you call a creative economist, and then talk a little bit about what is a creative economist.
My background is quite varied. I pursued a very omnivorous set of interests. It was a nonlinear approach to say how I got to this point. As my background is business economics and finance.
And to me, I just want to chime in because I feel like we used to live in a world of what do you do? And I feel like we're moving a little bit into a world of how do you do what you do?
Yeah. What do you do? Well, part of how I got here is I can't stand that question. I don't think it's relevant. It's signaling and it's an investigation for compartmentalization. And that exists for certain reasons because we're in systems that are heavily dependent on othering, which I'll talk about later perhaps. It's really, please tell me what box you fit in. And hopefully if I understand that box, then I will understand you. So it's really a shortcut. It's not really an interest in who you are. It's just really more of a, let me find out what you can possibly mean or do for me. And that's where the what do you do comes in. That's just my opinion. I mean, it's got a lot to do with, it's rapidly finding out social status, finding out one's usefulness to someone else, and things of that nature. It's a very transactional question. It's not a human question. It's a transactional question.
Yes. So from this, you call yourself a creative economist. What projects are you working on that will help us understand more clearly what it is that you do? Seeing that what you do is how you do it, but what is the context for you practicing these ways of thinking?
I don't separate many things from a way of being. So I think perhaps if the best way for you or your listeners to understand that my approach, it's a way of being. As a creative economist, to just get to your question, I'm economics, art, and education. So I came from a background of working with early stage companies and working with entrepreneurs, which, let's say, I find that an entrepreneur is a very interesting person. Mm-hmm. And entrepreneurs are very, very different, usually, in my experience, from a corporate manager, right? And an entrepreneur's way of being is often such that they hate the role of a corporate manager. And the really, truly good ones know sort of when to exit or to pass the baton because it usually signals success. And then they have to pass the baton to that type of person. So now, that's, and the reason I mention that is because my way of my being stems from curiosity. I'm very curious about the way of things. Okay. And from an early stage on, from these places, that sort of satiates the reason of many hats is because I look at the entire system. I'm a lateral thinker. So, and I enjoy that perspective of flying at 30, 40, 50,000 feet and taking a look, and then looking at systems and networks. So as a creative economist, I'm economics, art, and education. And my lens is economics. My method is as an artist, and my distribution channel is education. So it's transdisciplinary. Each informs the other. It informs the other in my course design, in teaching, in advising. And currently, I am a visiting faculty at FIU in residence, co-designing their art and design incubator, which I'm sitting in right now, and taking arts-based creatives through entrepreneurial real practices. So I'm on a team of, there's 3 of us in total. We're solving for the deficit of art school for artists that choose to be working artists, but not only via the gallery or museum options. So we're changing the paradigm, because it is not a lecture, it is not textbooks, it is experiential, immersive, real practices. I work with decision makers, directors and founders, and I'm helping push the process of solution-focused ideating, strategy, implementation, and differentiation. But predominantly, I hold the viewpoint of external examining, internal looking outward, kind of like looking in a mirror. And for example, organizational culture. I'll give you a very concrete example. Especially university and institutions are bureaucratic entities, and entrepreneurial activity exists on the other side of the spectrum. So it's oil and water. So they can teach it, they can talk about it from a textbook, but when you're attempting to create a real practice experience of what it means to be, and this is what I'm saying, I focus on being an entrepreneur. That's quite different than reading about being an entrepreneur. That is where these realizations come, and that's where I have to manage that. And it's bridging really spaces that are often antagonistic, but the aim is for shifts and positive shifts. You get a lot of there's a lot of questioning, and there's a lot of ahas, and that's the goal, because we are in a world of specialization, and I respect that, and there's a lot of specialists. But in specialization also means it's very siloed. There's lack of exposure to anything that exists outside of that specialization. The realization is, or what occurs, is that I've never seen it from that perspective. I've never been able to think from that way. One of the things I say is, if you want to scare a manager to death, show up as a creative.
Makes sense. Managers never really liked me.
I don't want to generalize them all. I don't want to put them all in a bucket.
I know. So out of the ideas that you're swimming in, what in your experience has the most impact in terms of shifting people and possibly shifting a culture or culture in a bigger way?
Relationships.
Okay, tell me more.
Where do you see the most shift or the most change? And that's the ability to build relationship, because it takes a lot of trust. It takes a lot of trust. It's not easy, and it's risk. Creativity is risk, right? And the two cannot be separated. Business operates from a place of mitigating risk. So it's not alarming to me or anything that absolute creativity, I call it, doesn't bode well in organizational structures. So I call it. Absolutely.
Is that an emergency fire drill that's coming?
I've been here 3 years and never had this.
Fire drill?
No, it's because there are gun shooters and all sorts of things happening. So now we have a lot of emergency alerts. It's not fire.
What should we do? Should we just wait for this to be over? I mean, it's pretty intense. I don't know. How long do you think it will be?
This is as new to me as it is to you. We're going through this experience together.
And Brent,
this is very apropos for our topic. And
yeah, how is it apropos in your mind?
Uncertainty. And this is why we don't see absolute creativity often thriving within structures that achieve this level of size and operation, because you just can't have people running around being creative. That's what I'm saying. It's a myth. Everyone running around says, right? I made it sound like ridiculous. But if it was everybody running around being creative, solving problems, that sounds really good. It's how you speak about it and the perspective in which you shine a light on it. And when I talk about absolute creativity or I talk about artists, I talk about them as problem solvers, and having alternative perspectives and ways of viewing things and doing it in practice is often considered too high of a cost to many operational structures.
Well, so there's two things. First of all, if this kind of creative thinking became normal, what do you think things would look like? That's one question. The other is, in your experience, what is the cost of creative thinking inside of organization?
The cost? Well, it exists. It exists predominantly in research and development. And research and development is, from a financial management point of view, from a CFO point of view, from a controller's point of view, that's a very expensive proposition, right? Because you are experimenting, right? We'll use the word experimenting. You are having controlled risk situations, and you are basically setting up a structure that has a high prospect of failures. It is actually designed to get through as many failures as possible to hopefully find something that works. So within an organization, that is really expensive.
So you can't even take those creative thinking risks because it's too expensive to take those risks.
Absolutely. And that's one of the factors of an entrepreneurial ecosystem. Being able to fail is a privilege. But let's just follow through on this, because what's important now, I've just said, okay, well, research and development is really sort of the unit within a business structure that was typically charged with holding risk. What's occurring is that type of thinking is occurring within the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And then if they achieve some form of traction or success, or start to approach solving this market problem, then the bigger institution can simply acquire it. So the research and development and that creativity has been outsourced. I address it from the education point of view. I address it from people young and early in their journey point of view. I address it from those who are mature and afraid of risk point of view. All right, it's a multilateral approach.
If you could amplify any one of your ideas into the popular culture, what would you choose?
I am you. If people recognize people and could see and think, I am you, I think that's what I would choose. We're busy defining how and what is the other. But what I'm saying is that this interconnectivity. Things are connected. It's the othering is attempting to dismantle or to not recognize the connection. This is why I say, I am you, right? If we took I am you and applied that to technology, That would address inclusivity. That would start to address diversity. That would start to address a lot of things in design, simply design, right?
Makes sense. And I like that statement. I am you. It's very simple. I think very, very gettable. But I think part of what drives all this zero sum, me race to the top, is our economic system. It's about kind of one-upping and gaining. It's about being on top. So is there something we can do to make a difference towards a world that's more inclusive and creative?
Well, I'm going to stress, I am you. Everything's connected. So if you're a root cause is the inability to even see an other or difference as I am you, or even to be able to approach it that way, I am you. Put that in architecture, put that in technology, put that in politics, put that in philanthropy, put that in health, put that in the home. I am you. Put that in our social systems, transportation systems. Just put that method of being and thinking. I am you. And if we can do that, it will change how we design our world.
Well, I was going to ask you, I went winding down, and I was going to ask you one last question. If you could make your ideas bigger and have a bigger impact, what would that look like for you?
It would be an institute of connectivity. That's what my ideas bigger would look like, an institute of connectivity from the premise that we have all the solutions to most of our problems dispersed among disconnected silos of self-preservation and interest. And what we need are plugins. Designed connectivity for bigger and better impact. And guess what the motto will be?
I am you.
There you go.
So I want to thank you.
I appreciate the time.
Thank you for joining us today. And remember to comment, like, share, follow anywhere you get your podcasts. To learn more about Culture Shift Agency, go to cultureshiftagency.com.